Good evening to you all. Um, my name is Dr. Fundi Lenyati, alternatively known as Dr. Fundi. You will notice that I said greetings to you all or good evening to you all, because as you know, nowadays we no longer use the ladies and gentlemen, kind of greeting because some people do not subscribe to the binary view of gender. And I can't, in the midst or in the presence of somebody who is a diversity and inclusion specialist, I cannot be discriminating anybody. But anyway, my name is Dr. Fundi Lenyati. Welcome to the Dr. Fundi Digital Health Channel as attendees and also participants at this inaugural Health Manifesto Grand Round or webinar series. We'll be hosting various independent candidates and also major political parties over the next 4 to 6 weeks. As you can see next to me is our special guest, but I'll tell you a little bit more about our special guest. Our inaugural guest for this Health Manifesto webinar series is none other than Ms. Anele Mda of the Where is My Photo IEC fame? Where is my photo IEC? She's an outspoken and fearless young leader in the South African, political landscape. Now, I just want to tell you a little bit more about her. So, Miss Anele Mda, whose clan name is Mamtolo, she is a gazetted independent candidate who is running as an independent candidate for these national and provincial elections that are coming on the 29th of May. Now, she has been interviewed already by a number of people. She's just come out of SABC 404. But let me tell you a little bit about her. I'm not sure if we can talk about your age, but anyway, she's a 46-year-old young lady, multi-award winning servant leader and politician, prominent figure in the South African politics, very much committed to fostering diversity and inclusion. She hails from a family of politicians and freedom fighters. In the Eastern Cape, I know of Mr. Mda. Is that your grandparent? Yes. Yes. So she's got this leadership thing in her blood. She's got strong determination, strong passion. She wants to make a difference in the communities. She's got more than 20 years of work experience, about 16 to 17 of those in the corporate environment, where she's an expert in workplace diversity, inclusion, and transformation. She is a problem solver of note. That's her corporate experience. But she also is a veteran when it comes to politics. At her age of 46, she's already been an MP, in Parliament, South African Parliament, where she represented Cope some years ago. But she came back to the corporate environment, and she also has got her own company. In 2009, she was a Mail and Guardian esteemed list of top 200 young leaders. In 2010, True Love magazine included her as the most inspiring youth leader. My hometown, Umtata, the legal center there recognized her for her dedication and exceptional interpersonal skills and awarded her a certificate of recognition for selfless service and people skills. In 2011, President Obama acknowledged Anele as one of the emerging young leaders in public office. So we are not here hosting a novice. We are hosting somebody who has been there, who is driven by wanting to make a difference in our country. So, Anele, Mamtolo, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you so much, Fundi. Thank you for that resounding introduction. It felt like I was listening to someone, introducing someone else, not me. But thank you.
So, EP photo. Where is the photo? Did they answer you? Where is the photo IEC?
The photo IEC. The photo thing is very interesting because honestly, it is okay. I don't think it has divided the country. There are logical people who understand the context from where is the photo thing emanated from.
Yeah.
But also there are just people who are like, no, she wanted, because she's an independent, she's not been well profiled. She wanted some mileage and some attention. And the reality for me is that you couldn't have done it any other way. You needed to ask, where is the photo?
Yes, because everyone else, their logos were there.
Absolutely.
And you have already sent in the photo beforehand. So the logical thing is that, your photo or your logo should have been there.
Besides, I think I think the most unfortunate thing about it was that I was the first independent candidate, and I felt that if I would have omitted raising that, I would have thrown other independents into under the bus, because it would mean I am receptive to us just having a blank space that does not represent what we will be in the ballot. Yeah. So I was not going to let the other people down simply because I must feel the fear of not having to command the authority to stand up and explain, where's my photo?
Yes. No, I actually thought that was a good thing to do. You stood up and you made so much sense. They had to acknowledge. And what was of interest, though, is that all the guys were scared of responding. And it's only a lady who stood up, apologized, acknowledged that you got a valid point. But anyway, welcome. Today, you are our inaugural guest. We are running this webinar series of health manifestos. Now, just a bit of background as to why we are having these, health manifestos. One, almost every independent candidate or political party has already launched their manifesto or are in the process of launching their manifestos. I'm aware that on the 18th of April, you will be launching yours as well. Now, just a quick look at the different political parties, in terms of what they are promising in their manifestos. One thing that became clear to me is that the majority of the parties have not taken time to actually look at the area of health, which is a very important area. We've just come out of COVID-19 just a few years ago. We know that when things go wrong in healthcare, they can actually lead to everything stopping, like we saw during COVID. So just a few years later, you look at the political parties, their manifestos, there's very little that has been written by most. It's like a tick box, situation. So I thought it would make a lot of sense that um, we have this kind of webinar series whereby we invite the independents like yourself, we invite the political parties to come and unpack and maybe and hopefully share more than what they have shared in their official manifestos in terms of what is it that they want to do for the South Africans. So it is on the basis of that I felt we need to give an opportunity to those who want to go and represent us in parliament, or even in the provincial administrations. They must tell us beforehand, because right now quite a number of people have not made up their minds in terms of who they're going to vote for as independents or as political parties. And it would make a lot of sense that we get the people to come and talk to us here. But before we get to the business of today, whereby you are going to tell us about yourself as an independent candidate, and then also tell us maybe briefly, what is it that you want, to do broadly, but specifically on the healthcare space. What is it that you want to do? I'm going to ask my colleague to play a video, which is just a message from the WHO Director General. It was a message for World Health Day, which was on Sunday. And we will then take it from there in terms of the discussions about you as a candidate, what you want to do for us, and specifically in healthcare. Just bear with us a bit. Okay, there's no voice there.
The answer is a lot. First, know your
Can you start it from the beginning, please?
right to quality health. Since 1948, WHO has worked for the right to health. On World Health Day, we ask, what can you do to claim your right to health? The answer is a lot. First,
All right, I think we're going to have to abandon this video. It is not doing what we expect it to do.
information.
All right, let's abandon the video. Let's abandon the video. Let's just continue with our interview. So, like I said, Mam Tolo, can I refer to you as Mam Tolo or as Anele? As
Mam
we,
Tolo cuts it so much.
Akuzithuthi man.
Yo, jonga ungandiqali. Ewe, ndingumam Tolo Fundi, ndingumam Tolo uZulu umchenga ungonyaka ngobuvumba lempongo leyana kumalandelo intombi sithi ndize kumlomo omde kumothi bulawo kuphuma kasixhenxe mbiza noba zikavoti.
So I think the first question we need to ask you, you have chosen to become an independent candidate for the upcoming elections.
Yes.
You were before, before you were part of a political party. Now you are an independent. Can you just maybe share with us why did you choose to become an independent candidate now?
Okay, thank you, Fundi. I think the first thing that I must state from the outset is the fact that reflecting on our country requires one to do that reflection with a very sense of objective lenses rather than a heart that has loyalty to certain stratas or bodies or institutions or organizations.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I have done. I've always been a person who, in the journey, in whatever way, in whatever I'm doing, I always make sure that I take pause and reflect on both the journey and also the evolution of the journey. And I think having looked at South Africa 30 years since the dispensation of democracy, I felt that it was opportune and it was also warranted that one begins to look at South Africa both from a context of an external eyes, but also looking at South Africa from within, because at the end of the day, the reality that we have, which we must always reconcile ourselves with, is the one that says there is no other place that we have either than except South Africa.
Yes.
South Africa fails, there will be nothing left for us to gain. And it is on that basis that I looked at the party political hegemony in all its entirety. And I looked at everything that has been happening in our country, both from party political framework as well as individuals within our country. And I came out with a conclusion, or I arrived at a conclusion that says, under the party political system, South Africa is being disserviced, and South Africans are not fully realizing the gains of the freedom that was attained. And I felt that it will no longer be advisable of me, and I don't see it worthy of any value for me to continuously looking at my contribution confined along party political lines, because I no longer hold any confidence in any political party.
Yes. Okay. So it is basically something you just didn't wake up and say, I'm going to do this. It is a product of a lot of reflection on what works and what doesn't work. And also, where would you best be able, to contribute as an independent?
Absolutely.
Now, I mean, one of the interviews that you went to a few days ago, they actually asked you that, do you think you will be able to have a voice and make a change? And you actually made an example around the Dacha bill and the law. Can you just share with our viewers, that was a thought that to me made a lot of sense.
Thank you, Fundi. Firstly, I think it is very much important that we must emphatically and vehemently demystify the myth that says being an independent candidate, you are led into a trap where you will be selling South Africans a powder cake that will not be able to dish at the end of the day, because you come to Parliament, a space where numbers matter, but you will be coming with no numerical strength because you're just an individual. And the basis from where I dismiss that is my own experience when I was a member of Parliament, where, for instance, I participated in a private member's bill that was proposed by the late Ambrosini, a former member of Inkatha Freedom Party, yes, who proposed the bill that has gotten now to be the one that led us to a watershed groundbreaking moment of having a Dacha bill that has been legalized in South Africa to be utilized for medicinal purposes, something that is very, very important.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, that's just one of the examples that shows that if you are determined, you are focused, you are passionate, even one person, can actually make that change.
Absolutely, and I think it's also it's also on the basis of the rationale behind whatever that you are proposing. If it does make sense, and also over and above that, I think you also monitor or watch the fertile ground for such proposals. For instance, I've got my own strong proposals that I know I am going to be knocking in Parliament with my own private members' bills on things that I know if they can come to exist in our country, they are likely to be interventions that are going to make so much impact.
Yeah. Okay. So you are a young person. You already have been, to Parliament as an MP. Now, one of the things you mentioned in that interview, you said the voice of the young people is sort of drowned, and it's one of the constituencies that you want to actually help to ensure that they are actually brought in, in all the decisions about the future of this country, because they are the future of this country. Just expand on that.
Look, one of the things that we cannot deny is the fact that the current state of how young people have been driven to the peripheral ends is not by default. It's a well-orchestrated design mechanism to ensure that they are denied the opportunity to learn from the leaders that are supposed to prepare themselves to hand over the baton to young people.
Yes.
But at the core of it must be a mindfulness from some of us who emerge from youth structures, who have been revolutionaries from the youth ranks, who must carry the task of the generation of young people who are being silenced during this period of our time. And if people like us, like myself, are able to stand and lend their voices to be the voice of the young people that are being silenced, we will ensure that we gradually bring young people with us, and we will also ensure that we're able to force their hand into the tables where decisions are being taken. Because at the end of the day, we whether we like it or not, we are not going to be absolute creatures and species. We are people that at some point are going to perish. And when we have perished, the journey of leadership in our country must continue. And the task at hand of the evolution developmentally of our country will be a burden and the responsibility that will have to be carried by young people.
Yeah.
Whom, if we do not shape now, and if we do not nurture now, and if we deny them the opportunity to come to the center, would have failed this country. And that's what I'm saying. I'm standing up to make sure that my voice is used for young people, because I honestly get so much frustrated and to a point where I get annoyed by the fact that we have a generation of intolerant old people who do not seem to appreciate the need for us to invest on the leadership of young people in this country, as though there is absolutely nothing that will come after us. There must be leaders that must emerge after us.
And in fact, many of these people who are old now, when they got to parliament, they were in their 30s and they were in their 40s,
Absolutely.
And but 30 years down the line, they are reluctant to actually hand over the baton.
And one cannot fathom to think, what is it that they knew that was of wisdom for them to have been given the spaces that they were given at the time, that all of a sudden they themselves see it as, no, it's not necessary that young people must be entrusted. We need young people to be entrusted during the time when elderly, sober leaders are present and available to hold the hand of young leaders, take them through the processes, but also believe in the leadership of young people, even when you do not see it. Because when you don't see the leaders in young people, it means you have not yet taken the time to invest on them. You have not taken the time to nurture them. You have also not taken the time to recognize your own contribution over the need to ensure that there is a prepared next layer of leadership.
Yeah.
And if we fail to do so, we cannot call ourselves leaders, because a leader is someone who does not fear to breed the next perfect leader.
Yes. All right. So the video that we wanted to play was a message from the Director General of the World Health Organization,
Yes.
Dr. Tedros.
Yes.
He basically was saying, because on Sunday, it was World Health Day. So the slogan was, my health, my right. My health, my right. Now, if we bring it to the South African context, our constitution, the one that is said to be amongst the best in the world, has got a clause, section 27(1)(a), which says all South Africans should have access to affordable quality healthcare, including reproductive health, right? So that is in our constitution. So if that is the case, and we've just seen what has happened with our health system during COVID, it is important that I think each of the people, as individuals or as parties, to actually tell us what is it that they want to do differently going forward. So you, as an independent candidate, just tell us briefly, firstly, about you, what you want to do broadly. I know you are unveiling your what do you call it, 10-point plan next week.
Yes.
However, you can just give us just the highlights if you can. Yeah, just at the top. Then we'll zoom in on the matter of health.
Yes.
All right. As somebody who's been in parliament, as somebody who's a member of the public, as somebody who has gone on some of these visits by parliamentarians, in terms of looking at how things work in this country. So just tell us about what is it that you want to do broadly, and then let's focus on healthcare.
Okay. At a broader level, Fundi, I really hold a view that says, what has brought South Africa to the standstill, the current stagnation that we find ourselves at, the major contributor to it, whether it is the high level of unemployment, whether it is the state of collapsing public health, whether it is the education that is not cognizant of the developmental outlook that it ought to be, what the major contributor to the state that we find ourselves in is the corruption that is from the national purse. Because once corruption has reached the levels and the proportions that are unimaginary that it has gone to in our country, it takes away from the money that is supposed to ensure that there is a provision of services to the people and service delivery of all comprehensive kinds that you can think of to the people of South Africa. So at the center of it all, whether you are talking about the inability of the economy to create, to be stable in order to ensure that we attract people, or we collaborate with global strategic partners who see our country as a commercially viable country for and good sport for investment, whether you look at it from a point of the depreciating extent of value that globally as South Africa, we have since gone from being a pivotal strategic global player in geopolitics to becoming a peripheral but one player that is there in the audience, which is not our position, which has never been our position. We've always commanded so much authority, both on continental and global issues. I mean, it didn't come by a mere favor that we have been identified as one of the countries to host very significant global occurrences and global events in the history of this time. It is because of the stature that we have been held on by the global community, which I believe we have gone into the shadow of who we used to be. Yes. But at the core of it all, before I zoom to health focused issues, at the core of it all, I believe corruption is the hand that takes away from me and you, whether we are able to provide for ourselves, but it takes more from those who do not have anything.
Yes. Now, you came up with your 10-point plan, which you'll be unveiling next week. Yes. But obviously, none of us are experts in everything, which is why I just focus on healthcare. Yes. You must have, interacted with different people. So that manifesto that you'll be unveiling next week, can you just share a bit, how did you come to that 10-point plan?
Okay, you remember that the process of IEC for independent candidates required that we must be endorsed by general public of South Africa. And we had to circulate with the form that IEC had developed, which we needed people that are registered to vote to say, I endorse those persons and this person to be an independent. So what I did when I was crisscrossing the country during that time where I was presenting the IEC form, I was also converting the very same public meetings into engagement meetings where I would solicit the views of South Africans on the various issues that they regard as pressing matters. That was my way of consulting public, because I couldn't have sat in a corner in my house and just develop something that I say, this is what I believe represent and accurate lenses with which to look at South African problems. But I needed South Africans to kind of give meat into whatever skeleton I could have had an idea of. And that's how I came about the formulation of the manifesto itself. Having some form of engagement with people, but also over and above, I'm using my own social media platforms where I was obviously throwing topics where people generate their own comments with various experiences that directly they've had, but also an overview of a generic view of what people think relating to so many areas of our country. So that's how I came about, and that's where I actually got my 10-point plan, because from those issues that I managed to collect out of those consultations, I was able to flag what are the dominant issues that are coming repeatedly, that are being expressed, whether I'm in Mpumalanga or I was in KZN or I was in Northern Cape. The issues kept being so much similar, and that's where I was able to know that, okay, it looks like I cannot avoid dealing with 1, 2, 3, 4 on the basis of the common reflection of these issues that were coming up from the various different consultations that I was having.
Yes. And in some areas, you did speak to some experts in certain areas.
Absolutely. I've engaged with scholars, academics, professors, and various industry leaders in various areas because, I mean, it's always, it's difficult to be a leader, but the test of being a leader sometimes is subjecting yourself to someone who is a leader, see someone as a leader, and put yourself at test in test by ensuring that you present your material to someone who will be able to objectively critique it, but will be frank and direct and will not leave certain areas in because they're thinking about the ego. So I had to go to most senior people. It was so difficult with Fundile because, you know, can you imagine going to Professor Panipikiana and knowing how hard it can go. But I had to look at a long-term reason behind that. But also, I had to identify people that I know that they have the passion for this country, and people that I know that their critique of my presentation will be on the basis of enhancing it and also redirecting it to where they think South Africa needs to be taken. So I have had to engage with various industry experts and leaders in various sectors as well. But also, at the core of it was ensuring that I bring the element of academic, especially people that bring a whole lot of experience in the space, but also people who command, who are of leadership in nature, in society generally, and people who I know that their leadership is very resembling of the dream of leaders that we also see ourselves wanting to become at the end of the day.
Lovely. All right, so let's not steal the thunder in terms of that 10-point plan that will be unveiled next week.
Yes.
But can we at least one of those 10 points in the area of health?
Yes.
I'm assuming that one of the 10 points has to do with just that area, because that is obviously the area that's very important for this channel, because we are a digital health channel. We are, we exist to foster and facilitate conversations on matters of health. So that's why we invited you to just share with us, how do you see the health system in South Africa? What do you think are the problems of the health system in South Africa? And what will you be actively doing alone or in collaboration with like-minded people to ensure that there is change? I don't know if I've thrown in many questions, but basically your diagnosis of our health system. Yes, we've got the public, which is used by 86%, 84% of South Africans, and the private 16% of South Africans. The two of them, they make up our health system in South Africa. But maybe let's focus on the one that's used by the majority, the public health system. What is your assessment, either as a patient or somebody who's got family members who rely on that service?
Thank you, Fundi. You know what, the state of health in our country, if I would say it is weak, I would still be glorifying it. I think it is high time that we do pronounce on it having reached its state of collapse completely. And I think, as you correctly put it, COVID-19 laid that reality very much bare on for everyone to see. And I think I appreciate the fact that you purposefully invite me to speak on a matter as if you knew that it's part of my 10-point plan. And I'm very much grateful that I did highlight it as one of the top issues that I need to commit myself and dedicate myself during the term of parliament in ensuring that there's much work that I bring into doing so that there is some paradigm shift on the state of our public health system. I will speak on it both as a person who is a direct, who has experienced it directly firsthand, but also I will speak it from a reflection that came across in my consultations, which was very dominant almost in every province I went to. The issue of health and the public and failing public health system was vividly there. I think, firstly, the issue of resources in the public health cannot be overlooked anymore. It just cannot be overlooked because let's state it here that it is impossible for one doctor to run a public hospital being the only general general medical practitioner that mans that hospital. It's practically impossible. That talks on the willingness to allocate resources in a manner that is in line with the services that are required, but also being cognizant of the vast nature of our society when I put Fundile, because the reality, whether we like it or not, we might find ourselves sitting now and living in commercialized cities that are the Johannesburgs of this world, the Cape Towns and this, that, and the other. But the reality is that the majority of that 84% that depends on the public health system are people that are in the townships, are people that are in the rural areas, the deep primitive areas where you find that even an ambulance cannot reach. Right? So when you have managed to have a hospital in a rural setup or in a township, the least that government needs to do, we need to go back into that rotational availability of medical practitioners, especially doctors, because you cannot exhaust one doctor, overstretch one doctor with the midday shift and the night shift. It's practically impossible.
They get burnt out.
Right? And if the coping mechanism is going to have to take some rest here and there is no rest in a public hospital because you are dealing with critical patients who each one of them require immediate attention, not of a nurse, but of a doctor. So if we do not look at the allocation of resources and at least prioritization of the overly stretched places, especially rural and township hospitals, to at least to have some level of being resourced with the right medical facilities and right.
So you're talking both infrastructure and human resources, the personnel.
Absolutely.
So that's one area of healthcare that you think is actually, needing serious attention.
It is. And I think one of the solutions I think I propose there is that back in the days, we used to have expanded periods of community services that were allocated to imminent graduates who are going to become doctors. And I think if government can look at stretching that, ensuring that rather than them coming to do community services for a shorter period, we stretch the period of community services. But obviously, in stretching it, we also need to compensate for that time. But in compensating that time, we are equally creating a much longer period of them accumulating the work experience, being exposed into the field. But on the other hand, government is equally benefiting because the service that government would have needed to budget highly for, now it's going to be available, not of course at a low cost, but it's not going to be at a high expensive cost as it would be when you are bringing a fully fledged doctor.
But you see, now you've got 2 years of internship.
Yes.
And then 3rd year of community service.
That's
before one can become a fully fledged doctor. And in February, we heard that there were 1,000 plus doctors who have just finished community service, meaning now they've been fully trained and they are unemployed. That kind of issue where there is a shortage on the ground. But at the same time, there are people who can't be employed because the finances are not, adding up.
But that's why Fundi, I'm saying there has to be a middle ground mechanism that says now that the person has finished the community service and they are fully qualified,
Yes.
but they are not yet placed.
Yes.
Government must hold on to the resource.
Yes.
It must be upon Anele saying now, yes. But when your government should not release you when it is the one that requires your service, that needs your services,
yes.
and there is a need already that is established on the ground. So the issue for me is that we shouldn't continue to treat it as though it was an obligation that they needed to satisfy, but we must also address the need from a government point of view.
Yes, because in that constitution I spoke to you about, section 27 1A, I think 1C actually, no, 1B says it is the responsibility of the state
Absolutely
to ensure that that right to health for all is actually realized. So what you are basically saying, you are putting the state, in a situation where you are saying the constitution wants you to do everything reasonable to ensure that those resources are actually there, human resources and other resources, infrastructure, equipment, and things like that.
Absolutely. And I think the second point on the health aspect is access. I think COVID was the most painful period for us to experience the state of decay that our health system has reached. But I think over and above that, there are things that we must never, be lenient to.
Yeah.
As you are saying, the constitutional provision of the right to health is well pronounced, and at no point should it be, tiptoed around. The issue of access to health for rural communities, for general ordinary citizens, and for township people is an issue that requires very much attention. I know there's a talk of NHI, which I do not think people must first start with the scare, mongering. Yes, because the reality is that we need a universal way of ensuring that there's access to health for everyone. I mean, COVID, even before COVID, we have had there has been a period in South Africa where we have seen an escalating levels of cancer disease in our country. Yes. And me and you, or you better as an expert to know how much even the private medical facilities or providers have a very tricky way of dealing with access when you have to deal with cancer. The oncology service has become something that is treated as a as a nice to have. In a country where our health reports state very well that we have a big problem of cancer in this country, just like we had TB issue over the years. And it needed an aggressive way of dealing with it. And I think the issue of access is one of the major issues that we cannot overlook. And I propose on it that our approach to providing health services to the general population must be premised on ensuring that there is no hindrance to access, because that is the major and the main sacrosanct point that we must not. I mean, we cannot be speaking about a constitutional right to health if we are still going to have issues where people are not able to access hospitals that are at least having all basic treatments that you need to get at a hospital. Yes. I mean, a drip in other hospitals is a nice to have when you are supposed to have it as a standard thing, because what do you do when a patient arrives at an emergency? The first thing that you do, you put up a drip. Yes. But if the drip is not available, what it means, you are not even going to be able to have the most sophisticated or advanced issues. Yes,
just hold it there. There are two questions already by people who are attending. would like to pose those questions. But before I do so, I forgot to introduce my colleague, Lizel, Lizel Anthony. She is also, participating here as a panelist.
All right.
She's a clinical psychologist in terms of training. She's the head of our employee assistance programs here at Proactive Health Solutions. And she said she wants to pose a question or two as a woman in South Africa on matters of health. So we will look at the two questions that have been posed on the Q&A, encourage other people also to send more questions, so that we can be able to ask Umamdolo to answer those questions. So let's look at the two questions, and then we'll also take a question from Liesel, and then we'll allow you to continue.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is rotation of doctors and nurses versus labor laws. How will that work? Our facilities do not have nurses' homes, for example. We have bad roads leading to them where a doctor is taken to
Okay.
clinic. For example, where will they stay? Then it continues. Strategically, what she is saying regarding the state not releasing doctors is right, yet there are legalities involved. And we are in a democracy. How do we then force doctors to remain working for the government when realistically there are no resources for them and they are underpaid?
All right. So I think that question really is it's acknowledging the issue you have highlighted of lack of resources, and the solution that we are proposing around some form of rotation.
Yeah.
But it's also saying, but how do you even take them there when even to access that clinic may be a challenge?
Yeah.
To access that hospital, St. Elizabeth in Lusikisiki, or in other places. So I think it's about the infrastructure, but let's listen to the second question.
Okay, second question. Conditions under which healthcare workers work in rural areas leave a lot to be desired. How would you improve these in areas like that? Supervision and support, equipment, living conditions. It is difficult to keep young personnel in the rural areas because once they have kids, they want to move to areas where they can have good schools. What would your plan be to counteract the drainage of these talented doctors from these areas?
All right, so that's the second question. It's really about retention.
Yes.
In low-resourced parts of our country, where these doctors themselves or nurses, they also have got lives and they've got kids who need to have access to schools. So how do you attract them to the low-resourced, areas of their country? Let's allow Liesel to ask a question. Please ask a question, Liesel.
Thank you, Doc. Anele, thank you so much. It's so refreshing to hear how you speak with passion about this new journey that you're embarking on. And I think thank you for being a role model for young females in South Africa and for those who identify as female as well. So from my side, I think you are an independent candidate, and you said, it's important for you to reflect on the journey, so the South African journey, as well as the evolution of the journey. You're just embarking on the journey. So maybe it's going to be a little bit of an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it still, because I think you have thought about it. So you also spoke about a paradigm shift. So my question is, how will you, as an independent candidate with like-minded supporters and stakeholders, ensure then a paradigm shift specifically for female South Africans and those that identify as female South Africans to be able to access affordable and quality healthcare services throughout South Africa? And I think it's important in the background of looking at diversity, equality, and inclusivity. How will that be possible? And I know it's a big ask for all political parties.
Basically, you are saying, Liesel, women's health issues, they need to be prioritized. As much as the Constitution guarantees and even talks about reproductive health, part of that, but the reality is still very different to what the Constitution espouses. So she is asking, as a female, to you, being an independent candidate who is also, a female.
Okay, I think let's dispose of the two questions first. I think the both questions they do reinforce the point that says there is a need to acknowledge the current or the prevailing challenges that are in the space. And I think the point that I would want to canvass or to be understood, to be driving home, is the one that says the state remains having a greater responsibility in ensuring that whilst the challenges that are in the space, for instance, as you were talking about the issues of safety, the issues of access of those rural areas, when we're talking about the rotational availability of health professionals, it's obviously not to expose them into danger or to put them under life-threatening situations at the expense of saying, no, we need to provide, health services to the people. No life must be put in danger because there is a life that must be saved at the end of the day. I don't think we can even begin to put those into one common scale because there isn't any that will be lesser of value than the other. The most important thing is to begin to think in an objective, willing mindset that says, this is the direction that we ought to be driving our thoughts towards. And this is the place where we're supposed to be looking at when we're trying to resolve the issues and acknowledging what currently is on the ground as a challenge that is looking at us. Coming to your question, Lizelle, the issues of women health matters are issues that I believe that have not been pronounced, assertively. And I do not believe that they have been given qualitative attention, nor have they been elevated, because I think there's always that, treading of careful around them because, no, we don't want to be seen to be discriminative. But the reality is that one way or the other, you are never gonna, in however universal you become in your approach in dealing with health matters, you are going to be compelled that at some point you must separate the women health issues from the general universal health issues. And I think the most important thing for me is to drive an emphatic and a very assertive pronouncement of the need to be precise on the elevation of the health needs of women, which are obviously at some point unique. I mean, we need to have provision that must be able to pronounce on issues that relate to menstrual cycles, as well as issues that pertains to the build up to that phase for girl children. And that tells you that when we are talking about women health needs, we are not just talking about an elderly women, but also we need to take into cognizance the girl child health issues as well, which is an inclusive package of health issues that we must deal with. But over and above that, I think when we also talk on women health needs, we must touch on the psychological effect and also bring the mental health issue, which I believe has not been integrated into the broader understanding of the health needs. Because I think for a very long time, especially from us, the African community, there's always been this frowning upon issues that relate to mental issues because they've got a stigma of some sort. There is a deliberate need and attention that must be focused on not only demystifying all the myths that are around the issues of mental health, but we also need to bring an aggressive awareness campaign. I mean, dealing with HIV/AIDS needed so much of resocialization, so much of reimagining in both the literature that we have known in health, dealing with health issues, but our general literature as a people. So I believe that also when we're dealing with these women and female health needs, we have to integrate the issue of wellness and mental health for a greater, broader society, but also zoom in it as a need when you package the health needs of women in particular. I might not have gone directly to answer your question in the most precise manner, but I'm trying to bring the aspect that I believe you are trying to talk to.
Yes. Let me just come in there. I'm married. I've got a daughter who's going to be 18 this coming weekend. I've got sisters. There is this feeling by women, from girls to women, whereby they feel like they are trapped. They are not safe in South Africa. They can't go to the shopping center nearby without being harassed. They can, there's just so much. So they're always on the edge. People now are almost stuck to their houses and doing online, buying of basic groceries and everything. So as a female, understanding, the issues of safety, and the anxieties, because you're talking mental health, the anxieties that women are always faced with when they step out of their homes to do what is basic. Sometimes within their own homes, they are not safe. Can you just talk around that? Because I think it's still within the broader aspect of health.
It is. Oh, I thought Lisa will.
No, she's basically agreeing.
All right. Yo, that is the most pressing problem that we're having at this moment to experience as a woman and as a girl child in South Africa. Because I mean, my daughter Power herself, whenever she needs to go out of the house, she will have she will stand and for a good maybe 10 or 15 minutes trying to rerun to us, where am I going to start? Where am I? How long do I think I'm going to take there? And then I'll go to this, I'll go to that, I'll go to. And there's always this anxiety of not knowing what is likely to be the situation the first time I step out, because there's always this fear of the safety that women and girl children no longer have like general public. And I think the fact that we think, Butfundile, the issue of gender-based violence must only be spoken about when there's someone who has died. We are refusing to enter into the awareness campaign. We are refusing to enter into the mind shift educational programs that must begin to re-socialize the entire community about the rights of people, because it's a human right to be a woman and to have to go and do whatever that you desire or to you deem fit for you to do. And when someone takes away your safety, they are infringing on your right. And it is not something that should be looked at as though, oh no, it's them who think it's in their head that they think they are not safe, so they must deal with it. It's even unfair that as women we are subjected to having to come up with ways of objectively thinking about how to avoid not being in danger, because we shouldn't be having to always walking with a watchful eye that says, before it shows I'm already in danger, I know. Because that's not the right way of having to live. But it also goes to and I think the aspect that you were talking about, it being again a health issue, is because from there, that's where rape come in. From there, that's when child trafficking comes in. From there, that's when forced prostitution comes in. And from there, that's where forced sex slave come in, which is literally an issue that happens almost everywhere and anywhere. But I think the most important thing that for me it keeps requiring from us is that us as women, we must hold the front line. I know it's tiring. We are tired. Dallas Silva, we've been on the front line fighting for things that we have not created. But maybe it is in the nature of the struggle that women should never rest. And we will not rest, because when I rest, for my generation.
Yeah.
I might rest for my generation because I say, no, we have done it, and I think everyone, but there's a generation that is coming after us,
Yes.
which we must still continue to hold the fork for. And we will not be able to tap out, because the monster that we are faced with right now, both of gender-based violence, the sexual violation of girl children, the harassment. I mean, our kids cannot even stand in queues in restaurant to buy, because there's a man who thinks this is an adult, just because they are now fully, yes, and also the fact that they are fully developed into a woman body.
Yeah.
They can be fully developed into a woman body, but the respect that these children need to be accorded in public spaces should not be on the basis of whether you see them as a potential sexual partner to you or not. They must be respected because they're human beings.
Yeah.
They must be respected because their bodies are not public places for devouring or for sexual pleasures.
Yes. So just still on matters of women's health. So maybe the question is, in what you'll be advocating for,
yes,
should you get to parliament? Women's health issues.
You mean when?
When, in fact. Yes, when. Because it's not
proper.
Yes, when. Yes, when. So when you get to parliament,
yes,
women's health issues, can the women out there, believe that there is one of our own who will do what she does best and make sure that you bring that aspect of health into the center stage, women's health?
Absolutely. I mean, I think me being a gender activist would not have been fully actualized and realized without having been having to be a voice that advocates emphatically and loudly on women's health issues. Because, like I said, you would not, it wouldn't take you long for you to realize that they have been pushed to the periphery. They have not been given any attention. And I think at the core of such is then what is depicted in our community and in our society, where we continue to having, for instance, if you are talking about single parents, you are talking about people that are demonized in society on the basis of raising children in households where they have not taken a decision to chase any person to be present to the child.
Yeah.
But as a parent now, you are compelled to take decisions about the health of a child and about every single aspect of the child in the absence of the next person. But we are now faced a situation.
Yes.
I think that's my
Yeah.
Okay. We're faced with a situation where when you go to give birth, you are required that on the clinical card, it must reflect the details of both the mother and the father. And such information sometimes you do not have, because the person is going to deny you their ID number and all those things. And these are some of the things that we need to go to Parliament and get to Parliament to be empowered with, to say, rather than using restrictive mechanisms of imprisoning parents on in dealing with issues that relate to aspects that affect even the health of the children or the biological evolution of the children, we must allow the present parent to be able to fully be present and also fully do the duties of being a parent without denying a child any right that they're supposed to get, especially those rights that are enshrined in the Constitution under the health rights especially.
Now, another matter that is a problem is the rise in teenage pregnancies. In our country, kids as young as 10, 11, 12 here in Gauteng, they are actually becoming mothers. And linking that to what I would say the clinics that used to provide contrast sex education, reproductive health education, and access to contraceptives. So these two things, the rise in teenage pregnancies and the issue of, I think I would say, inadequate or lack of access to, health education on matters of sexuality, sex, and also access to contraceptives.
I think, Fundi, let us all first maybe acknowledge the fact that the report that was released by the Department of Basic Education, which gave statistics of the fact that just in 2023 alone, we had about plus minus 45,000 school kids that got pregnant, and between from that 45,000, between the ages, or it ranges from between the ages of 10 to 14. And that range, that age group, is up to 15,000. Let us call it what it is. That is statutory rape.
It is.
That tells you that these
Up to 16.
Yes. That tells you that these are children that were not even sexually active. And a misnomer to think that we might say we do not know. No, we don't want to leave a gap of doubt that they were, because by law, they are children. They are not at the age where it is expected of them to be sexually active. So it again touches to the issues that we're talking about, that there is this monster that is looking at women and girl children, especially the one of sexual exploitative approach that sees women and girl children as just being objects of pleasure from especially grown-up men. Because I do not want to believe, I hold the view, my theory is that these children that we're talking about who are under a statutory rape occurrence, I don't believe that they were raped by their peers. I believe that it was elderly men who knew very well that they were preying on children, and they were pressing on whatever those children lack and use it to lure them into in that environment where ultimately they were able to sexually violate them. But taking it further, there is a need, and I have had this conversation way back with the Minister Nkosazana when she was still the Minister of Health. I once said to her, there is a need for a correct and accurate packaging of the health education as it pertains to the sexual readiness of our society, especially when we are talking to girl children and boy children. Remember, there's a phase that we offensively went on condomize campaign. We did not accurately package that message for its audience. We simply went on a generic campaign of condomize. We did not say this message is directed to this bracket. When we did so, we also had an unconscious campaign of the contraceptives. So if you look at it, this side you're saying condomize, right? What is the direct translation when you link the two? When you say on the left condomize and you say on the right put contraceptives, the natural layman's interpretation will be, once you engage sexually, make sure that you are on contraceptives. That's natural layman's interpretation. And that's where I think the messaging got to be confused. Yes. And this I believe might have had a contribution into how high we got our community very active sexually, because the message was not intertwined. The message was not seamless, right? And I believe that also we come from a background of a sex education or a health education that is rather threatening in approach than informative. That thing that says rather than saying
you dare sleep with a boy,
right? So the dare is rather you will see. So obviously the curiosity that is that killed the cat is gonna drive, right? But we need a focused repackaging of our health education that specifically must be for young people, and it must be simplified for all the categories of young people. But it must not, I always say, we need to guard against. It was difficult for me when I was engaged on HIV/AIDS public campaign in Port St. George, because I always needed to think, how do I deal with a family of an HIV positive mother who has got a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old who are not sexually active, and I need to make them understand what is the situation that we're dealing with here around the mother, without overly sharing and without overly exposing them to information that will cause so much chaos in their head.
Yes.
So packaging the information appropriately, and also to meet and fit the recipient that you intend the information to go to. I think we need that.
Yes.
And I don't believe that there is this notion that these girls are just loose. And I don't think we need such a reckless language in trying to bring or in trying to restrain or to rein in young girls.
Yeah.
We need to have a very focused language that is mindful, that is empowering, rather than depreciating of who they are, and a language that must not be about no, you are loose, that's why men are after you, because it doesn't invite them, right?
Yes.
And a behavioral patterns happen to women at any stage.
Yes.
We are also a subject of such.
Yes.
But no parent or no adult can create a vocabulary that is going to be driving a young woman who must be brought into a molded space into believing that that's why men are after you, because you are loose. What is loose?
So, is there a question?
Got more questions?
Yeah, we've got a few more questions.
Okay.
We need to wrap up by 1:30, so we'll take a few questions.
Okay, so lots of questions surrounding NHI, and specifically, we have a question that there is a general view that HIV funding by PEPFAR and other foreign funding to NGOs might be drastically cut under NHI, yet NGOs are currently the backbone of public healthcare response to the HIV pandemic. I thought this was appropriate for what you were talking about. Secondly, South Africa is running one of the world's largest HIV management programs, if not the largest, at more than 1 billion per annum. With more than 7 million people living with HIV in South Africa, what is her view on government's reliance on NGOs and thus foreign funding to run its programs? And what solution do you propose?
So basically, it's about the threat to the lifeblood of the HIV, AIDS, and TB response. Because we get a lot of grants from the US, the PEPFAR, and other UN aids and everything. So I think the question is, should we not relook our over-reliance on external funding and start to look at being self-sufficient, because those people can withdraw their funding at any time. I don't know.
But first, your thoughts on NHI.
But your thoughts on NHI.
Okay. Well, in principle, I believe that we should not be driven. We should not be driven by fear when the talk of NHI comes in. We should not look at it from a point of a privilege that is going to be taken away, and we should not look at it from a point that says we are going to degenerate even the facilities that are able to meet the needs of people and that are able to provide for the health needs of people, at least those who can afford those services that are not provided for in the public service. I think we should look at NHI as just one responsive mechanism and intervention that at least enables that everyone should be able to be granted access. And I don't think that guarantee of everyone being able to be granted access should be at the thought that says, once it is about everyone being granted access, it's coming to take from the others. I do not believe we should have that fear, and I rather we embark on a rather, maybe our thinking position should be the one that says, let us see the piloting of the NHI in identified certain hospitals, and let's see its effectiveness. And whilst we watch it being piloted, let us put mechanisms of understanding and ascertaining if it does deliver on the things that are the promises that are promised, are packaged under it.
Yes.
But over and above that, my view on NHI is that from a universal health access point of view, it should not be rejected, and it should not be seen as though it has got a threat to take away anything from anyone, because its intention is to ensuring that the access right that is for everyone is indeed provided for and realized by everyone.
Lovely. So basically, you are in support of NHI.
Absolutely.
Because NHI is our own customized version
Thank you.
of universal
Universal
health
health.
coverage.
Yes.
There's almost 100 countries in the world that have got universal health coverage.
True.
And those countries, they did better during the COVID-19 pandemic than those countries that did not have that.
Absolutely.
All right. Our neighbor, Botswana, has got a form of universal health coverage. You know, Seychelles, Mauritius, Tunisia, Morocco, those countries have a working universal health coverage. So we, as part of the WHO, there was a resolution that by 2030, all member countries should have universal health coverage. So I don't think many people are opposed to the principles of universal health coverage.
Yeah.
But it seems like most people are worried about the point you mentioned, corruption, and also what will happen to the private health funding.
Yeah.
But from what you are saying, you are in support of universal health coverage. There could be a few things we are not in agreement with, and let's focus on those, but not the principle of universal health coverage.
Not at all. And I think the point you are making about Botswana was a point where COVID showed us. I mean, the piling of people in public hospitals not being able to be given just oxygen alone.
Yeah.
And government could not intervene by taking people from public hospitals and send them to private hospitals so that they can be able to just be given oxygen.
Yeah.
But with NHI, it means those lines can be able to be expanded on, and there could be that collaborative sense of giving service, especially in moments where there is an urgent life-threatening need.
Yeah. All right. What was the other question?
The AIDS.
The risk of funding, running dry, should PEPFAR, which is the US presidential, grant on HIV/AIDS and TB, should such funds run dry? Should we be reliant on external funding? I think that's the question.
I think there are two dangers already that we must pronounce on, that a sovereign country runs a risk of when it depends on external, especially foreign funding on things that are especially related to the social cluster, which health falls under. The risk that you have there is that you might be tied into conditions that you may not be agreeing with, but because you are dependent on this grant, it could be impossible, or it could be difficult for you to get yourself out. So I do want to depart by a point that says, whether we could even have a threat of those grants being taken away or not, it is important that we rethink our funding model as a country generally, because the reality is that the effectiveness of these NGOs that support the public health system and the public health work, whether it's through a public education or campaigns or whatever mechanism they do not need to only live off those grants. Because in the event in the event that I mean we see the geo shift that is happening. There's so many countries that are identifying new collaborative partners in the geospace, and we don't know whose friend will South Africa be with tomorrow, and we don't know which friend will leave South Africa hanging, and when that friend leaves the stage, will leave with their bag of whatever goodies that they brought. And I believe that if we review and relook our funding model as a country, and we find a way of taking from our own resources to ensure that because these are critical spaces, we cannot fully rely on external financial donors that may tomorrow tie us to conditions that we may find ourselves unable to agree to, and by so doing, we compromise the health of the people that we have this grant. So I do believe that it is compulsory that at this point in time we have to review and relook at our funding model within our own coffers.
Yes, thank you very much. Lizzle, last comment from you, because we are going to wrap up. We've only got 6 minutes to go. And I want Mamtolo here to do some form of an elevator pitch to say, I need to get there. I'm going to get there. And this is why, I'm your person. So please think around your pitch, because yes, we were focusing on matters of health, and it is clear that you are no stranger to matters of health, and matters of health are going to be part of your 10-point plan, which we look forward to seeing on the 18th of April. So I'm glad, as our first guest here, that matters of health are actually central to what you go and do in Parliament. So Lizzle, last one from you before we give our special guest an opportunity to market herself.
Yes, thank you, Doc. Yes, just some final thoughts for me. I think maybe some food for thought. I think it's going to be important for all of the parties and independent candidates to try and also look at, like we said, women's issues in isolation to just general health issues, but also looking at what are the specific health issues required for our marginalized groups, such as our LGBTQIA+ groups. I think it's going to be important to look at demystifying and destigmatizing normal bodily functions. And there's a lot of talk around sexual health education and providing contraceptives, providing free condoms. Are we really looking at providing the girl child with free female hygiene products? And I think some of the parties also need to start looking into that, because those are challenges that keep them out of school. Schooling and education is a protective factor for the girl child. What are we parties doing about that? So I think those are some of the things, and it would be amiss of me not to mention mental health. I think we see across the globe, when health budgets gets assigned, mental health gets assigned the smallest budget out of all. And I think that is something that is extremely, extremely important, especially in South Africa, where we look at the issues that females face. We spoke about gender-based violence, but also there's the issue of safety within the workplace, so intimate partner violence. We're speaking about the crime and what people are being, subjected to on a daily basis. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of internalized trauma. There's a lot of vicarious trauma. We need to look at the issues of mental health, and we need to look at appropriate funding for mental health in South Africa. So that's just some final thoughts from me.
Thank you, Lizzle. You're very right. I mean, as a country, we're spending less than 5% of what is spent in healthcare.
Yes.
Less than 5% as a country. And the recommendation is that we should be spending at least 10% of the national spend. So we historically and even today are spending, yet the burden or the load on the ground is actually much higher. Your closing remarks, your selling pitch, something that we will remember when we go to that place where we're going to put an X.
All right. Thank you so much, Lizzle, for that, for those clips, for your last comments, but also thanks to you, Fundi. I want to take this opportunity and say that the moment we are standing in as a country of 30 years into our democracy is an opportunity that allows all of us a unique moment where we need to look at who we are as a country and where we come from. And in looking at where we come from, we must use this 30 years as the accurate lenses of looking comprehensively and universally into our country from all angles and begin to ask the question, where is South Africa at this moment in time? How did it land where it is? And what is it that is required of South Africa to retain and reclaim and restore its greatness? Remember, this country is not just being a by the way country in the African continent. We are a country that has commanded so much respect. We are the country that used to go to the World Economic Forum and speak on global impertinent economic matters, and all the countries of the world will sit and listen. Do we still command that respect globally now? If not, where have we lost it in as far as the leadership confidence in our country has gone? The second aspect is I do want to say, going to the ballot on the 29th of May, we need to ask and look at ourselves and ask a pertinent question. Where is the future of young people? What role individually and collectively do we play to place young people of this country to where we desire them to be? Having noted where we say they are, what is it that must be done to ensure that there is a central space of priority that young people are given and elevated to? There is no fear with which young people are being looked at because we believe their intelligentsia, rather than adding to what we require as a country, will take from what we believe is our shortfall as leaders. And lastly, every single citizen that will be going to vote on the 29th of May will be going to vote in a vote that is a groundbreaking vote, where it's a unique opportunity of seeing independence coming to the fore at the time where we're reflecting on 30 years of democracy. This is not just a nice to have. It came about as a result of what our constitution has pronounced. And we are not being done a favor by being given the space as independent candidates. And myself as Anele, I stood because there's one thing that life has taught me. It taught me to stand up once, twice, over and over and over and over. And for this country, I'll forever stand. And I'm saying, South Africans, go to the ballot on the 29th of May. Before you put an X, ask yourself these questions. Where is my country? Is it where I need it to be? Is it where it used to be? Can I take it back? And I'm saying, if you are willing to take South Africa back, I am the voice to reclaim the people's power, and I'm willing to go to parliament, serve the people of my country so that we can retain the greatness that we've known this country to be.
And Funwa, thank you very much, Mamdolo. Thank you for spending actually 90 minutes with us, coming from another interview. We don't take that lightly. We thank you very much. And to all of the people who joined us, Facebook, YouTube, and also in the website, sorry, in the webinar itself. I can see my cousin there, Nokaka, and also Nomsa Mbabama. Thank you very much, guys. You stayed for the whole period, and thank you. We appreciate you. And this is the first, guest of ours. Next week on Tuesday, we will be hosting Dr. Litlape from Action SA on Tuesday, same time, that is 18 hours up to 19 hours 30. So we look forward to more people. So spread the word that we are cooking something here. We want to hear, because many people are not yet clearly decided about who to vote for. And
in Gauteng, that the pink ballot must come to Anele. The pink ballot is for the independent candidates in Gauteng.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's where you vote for this space. This is the pitch.
Yeah, we will, we will do our best to expose as many people to as many potential, independent candidates, and also the political parties, so that by the time it's the 29th of May, you are clear.
Yeah.
You know what the different people stand for and who can go and fight for you. Thank you very much to everybody, to my colleagues, Lizzle, and behind the scenes, Yonela. Thank you very much. And we appreciate you guys. We still have a few more weeks to go of hosting people. Anele, enkosi kakhulu.
Dabulela Phele. Thank you so much for
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everybody. Thank you. We appreciate you.